I built more muscle and got fitter after I cut my gym time in half, and so did my clients who adopted my counter set method. Most men think they need long and high volume workouts to build muscle, when in reality, that's the misconception that stunts their progress. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through my minimalistic counter set method that I used to cut at least 4 hours of weekly gym time and build muscle a lot faster. I'm going to show you why you need it, what it is, and how exactly you can implement it into your workouts to save time and build more muscle faster. Now, what if I said that the reason that you weren't making progress in the gym wasn't because you weren't doing enough, but rather because you were doing too much? Well, it literally is. And that's because your body doesn't build muscle when you work out in the gym. It builds muscle when you rest and recover. Most men are under the misconception that you build bigger muscles when you're in the gym, whereas that's not true. What happens in the gym is that you tear your muscles down, and then through nutrition and recovery and good sleep and all of that stuff, when your muscles grow back, they grow back bigger. Now I'm going to explain that a little bit better using this whiteboard. Let's say that this line represents muscle growth, and this line represents the amount of time that you're spending in the gym. Now, if you spend no time in the gym, you're obviously not going to get any muscle growth because you're not tearing your muscles down, therefore they're not going to get built back up bigger. The more time you spend in the gym, the more muscle growth you experience, up until a certain point, after which more time in the gym just leads to more junk volume. And I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. So what we have over here is a sweet spot where you can spend the least amount of time in the gym, right? Enough time for you to get the most amount of muscle growth that you can get, but less enough to where you're not doing what we call junk volume. If you were doing any more than let's say that this over here is 4 hours per week in the gym, right? If you're doing anything more than, now this is just for example's sake, if you're doing anything more than 4 hours in this example, then you're doing what we call junk volume. Now, junk volume, simply put, is just volume that you're doing in the gym, doing exercises that are not getting you additional muscle growth, so they're just wasting your time. By the way, if you want more deep dives on muscle growth through minimalism, hopefully using less ugly graphs than the one that I just showed you, you can click the link in the description and join my email list. So hopefully my gorgeous drawing got the point across that more time in the gym doesn't equate to more muscle growth beyond a certain point. So how much should you be training? That's where minimalism comes in. So in my minimalistic approach to training, we are intentionally limiting the amount of sessions that we're going to go and do in the gym, and we're also intentionally limiting the duration of each session. Because keep in mind, the time that you're spending in the gym is time that you're not spending doing two things. One, recovering, which is where you build muscle, and the second is other stuff that you care about doing, like working a job, spending time with your family or friends, or whatever your thing is. But here's the catch, and this is the most important part. If you're going to limit your sessions and you're going to limit the duration of your workouts, then you need to make sure that you're making the most out of every single workout that you do. And that's where counter sets come in. So counter setting is a technique that you use to preserve time and get more out of your workouts. And before I explain exactly what that technique/tactic is, it's crucial that you understand why we need to get more out of our workouts. We're going to be using minimalism. So if you're going to be a minimalist with your training, you're going to do infrequent sessions in the gym. So you're going to take 2 to maybe even 3 days in between sessions sometimes. Now, if you're going to do this, it's crucial that you give your body a reason to grow. And by your body, of course, I mean your muscles. So every time that you train, your muscles should go, holy shit, we are not strong enough for this. We need to grow bigger. In super nerdy scientific terms, we call this a hypertrophic stimulus. But in plain English, it's just pushing your body hard enough so that it has a reason to grow muscle. And when I say push your body hard enough so that it can grow muscle, I don't just mean lifting heavy like an idiot. It's about having a strategy for what you're gonna do in the gym before you even set foot in the gym. So what's a tactic that we can implement to make sure that we get more out of our workouts? Well, one commonly used tactic is supersetting. So simply put, supersetting is an exercise technique where you do one exercise pretty much right after the other with little to no rest, and both exercises target the same muscle group. So for example, I would do a set of chin-ups, and then right after, with little to no rest, I would do a set of bicep curls. This is called supersetting. But there is a problem, and it's actually a pretty serious problem that supersetting presents. And that problem is interference. So think of it this way. If I do a set of chin-ups before I do a set of bicep curls, and there is no way humanly possible that I'm going to be as strong on the bicep curls as I would have been if I chose not to do the chin-ups. This is where it gets worse, and yes, it does get worse. So my first set of chin-ups before my set of bicep curls is going to affect my first set of bicep curls. But my first set of bicep curls is also going to affect my second set of chin-ups, because I'm going to go chin-up, bicep curl, chin-up, bicep curl, chin-up, bicep curl, and that's going to be my 3 sets. Is that the police? They got me, guys. I'm guilty of helping people reduce their gym time and make more gains. But anyways, you want to avoid supersets for that specific reason, because one set impacts the other, so on and so forth, and that creates a snowball effect. So how do we solve this problem? Well, we solve it using counter sets. Now, when I do a counter set, after my set of, say, chin-ups, I'm not going to do bicep curls because they target pretty much the same muscle groups. I'm going to do a set of bench press, because when I'm doing a chin-up, I'm training my biceps, my forearms, and my lats and my back. But I'm not really training the muscles in my chest or the muscles in my shoulders or the muscles in my triceps. So as I'm doing chin-ups, my biceps and all of my other pulling muscles are working, but my pushing muscles are pretty much at rest. So my set of bench press isn't really going to be affected by my set of chin-ups, and my set of chin-ups isn't going to be affected by my set of bench press. Now, before I show you exactly which exercises you should almost always be countersetting and which exercises you should maybe avoid countersetting, I'm going to tell you my client Daniel's story, because although I'm giving you loads of tactics and theories and all of this stuff, I know that you're probably still a little skeptical, as you should be. I mean, there's loads of fucking lies on the internet, so I don't expect you to trust me. But I know that these tactics and this strategy works because it has worked for me and it's worked for my clients, one of them being Daniel. So when Daniel came to me, he was struggling to gain muscle and he was training 6 days per week for 2 hours at a time. He was following a push-pull leg split at the time. The problem was that Daniel's lifts were not moving. He kept doing the same weight in the gym for the same reps and he just couldn't progress. Now he thought, just like every other skinny beginner in the gym thinks, that he was a hard gainer and he had a fast metabolism, which was the reason that he couldn't gain muscle. And although I understand that that's not really a valid reason, it's more of an excuse because I have experience with helping people gain weight. The thing is, I can't really blame him because, bro, he was training 6 days per week in the gym for 2 hours at a time. Of course he's going to be frustrated if he's not seeing any progress. And he didn't see any progress until he started using counter sets. So after Daniel implemented counter sets, he went from looking like this to looking like this. And the only reason that happened was, not only did he reduce his gym time from 12 hours per week to 7 hours per week, he actually had a strategy for when he was in the gym. He wasn't just going in there guessing his workouts, doing a bunch of random exercises. He knew what he was doing because he had a plan. So now that you know that counter sets work, which exercises should you counter set and which exercises should you avoid counter setting? Now, pretty much any isolation exercises, say for example the bicep curl and the tricep extension, should almost always be countersetted, right? Because they're single joint movements. I mean, the only thing that happens when you're doing bicep curl is your elbow joint gets flexed. And when you're doing tricep extensions, your elbow joint gets extended. So single joint movements should almost always be countersetted, especially if they're targeting counteractive muscle groups like the bicep and the tricep. Now, there's other times you can use counter sets, like when one muscle group has nothing to do with the other. Even if they're not counteractive, as long as they're not related, it's fine to use them for counter sets. Now, here is when you absolutely should never do counter sets. And that is when you are doing exercises that are taxing on your body. Now, yes, when you do the bicep curl and the tricep extension, you should still be pushing yourself, but those two exercises do not have nearly as much of a fatiguing effect on your body as something like a barbell back squat does or something like a Romanian deadlift does. If you pair those two exercises together, you're not going to want to do the rest of your workout because you're going to be gassed out by the time you finish with them. And the only reason for that is because those exercises by themselves tax the body enough. You could pair, say, the barbell back squats with something that's less taxing, say like a calf raise or something. You could do that, but to pair it with a Romanian deadlift, by themselves, I mean, the back squat by itself is taxing and the Romanian deadlift by itself is really taxing, so don't pair them up together. Now, if you want more deep dives on workout tactics using minimalism, you can click the link in the description and join my email list. I'll see you in the next one.